Look at a modern map of Asia and you see a jigsaw puzzle of heavily fortified borders. But thousands of years ago, ancient Vedic texts described this massive landmass very differently. They called it Jambu Dvipa, or what is colloquially known today as Akhand Bharat, an undivided, continuous sphere of human geography spanning across the continent. The absolute peak of this territorial unity was realized under the Maurya Empire, heavily consolidated by Emperor Ashoka. He presided over a unified state stretching directly from the arid mountains of modern-day Afghanistan all the way to the dense jungles of Myanmar. That is a footprint of nearly 5 million square kilometers. Overlaying today's borders onto that same territory reveals a startling contrast. A single political and cultural umbrella once covered land that is now carved up into dozens of separate sovereignties. The reach of this influence extended thousands of miles further, deep into Southeast Asia, carried by ideas rather than infantry. Take this 9th century structure in Indonesia, the Prambanan Temple, dedicated to the Hindu trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Further north in Cambodia sits Angkor Wat, constructed to honor the same Vedic deities. To this day, it remains the largest religious monument on Earth, built by a society deeply embedded in this ancient Indian cultural matrix. If this shared cultural and political foundation was so deeply rooted across thousands of miles of Asia, what specific forces broke it? Over the last 2,500 years, that single sphere has been severed into 24 distinct modern nations. The western edges of this sphere, regions historically known as Ariana and Gandhara, encompassing modern Iran and Afghanistan, were deeply integrated into ancient Indian lore. Gandhara is tied directly to the epic of the Mahabharata, with its rulers playing central roles in the region's defining dynasties, but its location made it highly vulnerable. Starting with the incursions of Alexander the Great, this western frontier absorbed successive, violent waves of foreign invasions. Over centuries, Arab and Turkic conquerors pushed relentlessly into the territory. These conquests systematically dismantled the existing Vedic and Buddhist infrastructure. Temples and universities were destroyed, and strict new religious and dynastic systems were imposed by force. Sustained military conquest physically amputated the western reaches of this cultural sphere, replacing fluid historical connections with fortified, hostile borders. The eastern fracture happened very differently. Indian influence in Southeast Asia rarely arrived at the tip of a sword. Instead, it was carried across the Indian Ocean by merchants, traders, and Buddhist monks. This soft power allowed deep integration. In Vietnam, the ancient Champa kingdom thrived as a predominantly Hindu society for over 1,500 years, leaving behind vast complexes like the Mai Son sanctuary dedicated to Shiva. Because these distant regions were never bound by direct political control from the Indian mainland, their connection relied entirely on active trade and cultural exchange. When global maritime routes shifted and new local powers emerged, that lifeline was severed. Without a central political anchor, the ancient ties simply evaporated. The eastern edge of the sphere wasn't violently conquered. Its cultural memory slowly faded away over thousands of miles of ocean. By the 19th century, the British Empire arrived, wielding bureaucracy as a weapon of territorial control. They excelled at drawing permanent lines across organic human geography. Through rigid legal agreements, like the Sanchula and Punaka treaties, the British officially severed culturally identical neighbors, like Nepal and Bhutan, into separate administrative zones. Even though sites like Nepal's Pashupatinath temple remained central to mainland Hinduism, the political lines were now legally binding. These abstract map lines quickly became physical realities. Regions that had seen fluid transit for millennia were suddenly blocked by checkpoints and crude wood moorings, turning ancient neighbors into heavily regulated foreigners. The British administration also legally detached Sri Lanka from the mainland. This single administrative decision overwrote thousands of years of deep mythological connection, severing a bond physically represented by the ancient shoals stretching across the ocean. The colonial scalpels surgically removed organic cultural zones, replacing them with rigid, artificial legal boundaries designed purely for administrative control. The mid-20th century delivered the most abrupt and violent fracturing. In 1947, the hasty British exit resulted in the partition of India and the creation of Pakistan, triggering mass migrations and widespread violence on a scale rarely seen in modern history. The cracks continued to spread internally. By 1971, massive political and linguistic divides within Pakistan led to a brutal war of independence. Carving out yet another Safal agreement, Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru formally recognized China's control over Tibet. This diplomatic shift erased Tibet as an independent buffer state. It forced the Dalai Lama and thousands of Tibetans to flee into India, severing an ancient Buddhist link that bound the region together for centuries. The cold demands of modern statecraft finalized the collapse. Appeasing rising global powers, securing rigid borders, and establishing independent national identities turned former cultural brethren into distinct and frequently hostile geopolitical entities. The cumulative result of 2,500 years of invasions, fading trade routes, colonial treaties, and bloody partitions is the map we see today, a fragmented puzzle of 24 distinct sovereign nations covering what was once a highly integrated sphere. Today, the concept of a reunified Akhand Bharat survives largely as an ideological talking point, championed by certain political and cultural organizations within modern India. But attempting to manifest that ancient map in the 21st century would require erasing established sovereignties and sparking catastrophic conflict with multiple nuclear-armed neighbors. Politically, the borders are set in stone. Yet, while the political unity of this vast region has been permanently shattered, its historical roots remain intact. The myths, the temple architecture, and the deep-seated traditions continue to silently link hundreds of millions of people across modern Asia. The empire is gone, but its cultural DNA is indestructible.